Hello and welcome back to Old Frames Gaming. This past month at Dragon's Den, we opted to play the old school 93-94 format under the Atlantic rules set. This video is going to be featuring Chris on a Mono Black Aggro list, which also has some control elements, versus Mark on a Mono Red control build. So let's go ahead and dive into the decks and take a look at them. First up is going to be Chris's deck. He is playing a Mono Black Aggro list, which features Juzam Djinn, Hypnotic Spectre, some hand control elements like Hymn to Torak, and some board control elements like Sinkhole, and he does have a Strip Mine in there, as well as a Terror and a Drain Life to help control some of those creatures. We've got a Demonic Tutor, so we can go and search up our favorite card ever. And he's also got Chains of Mephistopheles, which is a pretty neat card that doesn't get used very often. But I like it. It's kind of funky. So we'll see how that works out for him, if it even comes up. We got a little bit of fast mana here. Chris is playing the Lone Mox Jet and Black Lotus, which are obviously restricted. His sideboard features 3 Gloom for those pesky white decks who love to run Swords to Plowshares and troublesome things like Armageddon or Wrath of God. He's got some Order of the Ebon Hands in there to also fend off those white creatures. We've got an extra Drain Life and a couple more Underworld Dreams to supplement the 2 that are already in the main deck. And then for some all-out board control, he's playing a couple of Minerals Discs, which can help take care of troublesome enchantments, which Black is famously known to not be able to do. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at Mark's deck. This is a mono red control deck, as far as I know, of his own design, and it's pretty neat. We've got Copper Tablet for repeatable upkeep damage. We've got Relic Barrier to control some of the more pesky artifact creatures in the format, like Triskelion or even Juggernaut or Su-Chi. We've got a constant card draw source in 4 Howling Mines. Mark's even playing a Mirror Universe. Of course, we've got a package of burn between 4 Lightning Bolts and 4 Chain Lightnings in Pyrotechnics, as well as 3 Fireballs. He's playing some Artifact Destruction in the form of Detonate main deck. He's also got Blood Moons because non-basic lands are all over this format. A Singleton Black Vice in the main deck is pretty cool. We're playing Wheel of Fortune to refuel our hand once we play out a bunch of this stuff. You'll see a couple of Maze of Ith in the main deck as well to kind of help establish some board control in case you can't burn something out. Looking to the sideboard, we've got Active Volcano. We've got some Earthquakes for additional board control as well as damage. He's also playing a couple of Meek Stone and a pair of Shatters. There are some cards in there in the sideboard that I cannot make out from the picture because of the glare. So maybe one of those will come up in the gameplay. Lastly, I want to point out Nova Pentacle, which is a card that I wasn't terribly familiar with, at least what it does. I'm familiar with the name. And that's a pretty interesting choice because the text on it says, pay 3 and tap it, and the next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, that damage is dealt to a creature of an opponent's choice instead. So, seeing that this deck is creatureless, aside from the Mishra's Factories that he can animate, you would be picking one of your own creatures. So, pretty neat stuff from Mark there. Lastly, the Singleton Tormod script for the occasional Reanimator deck that you might see in this format is also gonna help us out quite a bit. Now that we've taken a look at both of these decks, let's jump into some gameplay and see how it all unfolds. As we jump into game 1 here, Chris is going to be on the right-hand side of your screen, and Mark is going to be on the left. And Mark won the die roll. He is going to open up on a mountain and pass the turn over to Chris, who's going to take his draw for the turn. And we're going to see what we're going to open with on his side. So we're going to play a Swamp. Chris was lucky enough to get a Lotus on turn 1. Can you believe that? Dark Ritual, Lotus. Now we have access to 6 mana. Mind Twist. I believe that's for 5. And it looks like that is Mark's entire hand, everybody. Wow. That's going to be tough to come back from. I don't care who you are. Mark plays his mountain that he drew for the turn and passes back over to Chris, who is in command of this game. So Chris is going to go ahead and field a Black Knight and pass back over to Mark, who draws and then passes right back. Chris is going to hit in for 2 with the Black Knight and play Hypnotic Spectre. Mark is in a lot of trouble here because that Hypnotic Spectre is going to start hitting pretty soon for 2 on top of getting rid of cards out of his hand. So Chris untaps and takes his draw for the turn. We're probably going to come on in here with everybody, including that Mistress Factory. So we're going to hit for 2, 4, 6 damage. And we're going to pick a Blood Moon to be discarded off that Hypnotic Spectre. And Mark's going to go to 12. All right, Mark's going to take his turn, draw. There's a land and a Blood Moon. All right, so that's going to nullify the Mistress Factory for now. But Chris is still on top of things here. He is easily in control of this matchup right now. So we're going to tap 2 swamps. Probably going to... No, maybe we're not. All right, we're going to tap for 2. So we got a black and a red, and we're going to Demonic Tutor. So Chris is going to go look up his favorite card. What's it going to be this time? We'll probably see here shortly. If not this turn, definitely next turn. Most of Chris's cards are pretty low to the ground. He curves out. I think the top of his curve is 4 between the Juzam Djinn and the Nevinyrral's Disc out of the sideboard. So Chris comes on in for 4, sending Mark down to 12. He's going to pass the turn over. Mark's going to untap and draw his card for the turn, and he's going to pick him up, everybody. So it looks like game 1 went pretty fast for Mark. Chris is going to take it. We're going to give these players a few minutes to sideboard, and we'll catch up with them in game 2. All right, everybody, we're going to join up with these players going into game 2. They have completed sideboarding and have shuffled and presented to cut. Mark is going to be on the play here. Game 1 was not great for him, but superb for Chris. He told me after this match that that's the first time he's ever been able to pull that off in the history of playing the game. So, hey, it's remarkable. Good for him. So Mark's going to open up for us here in game 2. We're going to start on Mountain and Pass. So Chris is going to take his draw for the turn, take a look over his hand, see what kind of options we have available to us. We're just going to play a swamp and pass back over to Mark. So Mark drew a Mistress Factory for the turn, which he plays, and then he drops a Copper Tablet into play. That's going to deal 1 damage to each player during their upkeep. That is a symmetrical effect, so it's going to hit Mark 2. But if he can stay ahead on the damage race, he just might have a chance here. So Chris draws for the turn. He takes a peek at his hand, plays another swamp, and he's going to play a Hymn to Torak. So that's going to get 2 cards at random out of Mark's hand. This is a super powerful card out of Fallen Empires. Very popular in the formats of old school where Fallen Empires is permitted to be played. So we're going to get 2 Howling Mines out of Mark's hands. So that's going to stop him from really revving up the engines and drawing tons and tons of cards. So passing the turn back over to Mark, he takes his Copper Tablet damage, 19, and draws for the turn. He's going to play another Mountain. And we're going to activate our factory and come in for 2 damage, sending Chris on down to 17. He passes the turn. Chris is going to take his damage off of Copper Tablet and go to 16 and draw for the turn. Chris is thinking about his options here. Handful of cards and so many decisions to be made. Eventually, I think Chris is gonna play a land here, and he goes with Strip Mine, which is likely going to take care of this Mistress Factory on the other side of the board, and he does. So that'll stop some of the damage racing that Mark is doing. So Chris plays a Chains of Mephistopheles, and this is a pretty interesting card. It does not affect the first card drawn in the turn. However, any subsequent cards drawn by your opponents they have to discard a card first. So Mark takes his damage off of the copper tablet, and he fireballs Chris for 2, which is going to put him at 14, and passes back the turn. Chris is going to go to 13 off of the copper tablet, and then he's going to untap, draw his card for the turn. We're going to give it a peek here and see what kind of options we have available to us this time. So Chris is going to play another swamp here. So we have 3 mana available to us at this point. And we're going to go with Hypnotic Spectre. So that's good. So that's going to give Chris a little bit more availability of hand control. Mark takes his damage off the copper tablet to 17 and draws for the turn. Plays a Maze of Ith, so that's gonna be really, really helpful, stopping that random discard off of every time he gets damaged from that Hypnotic Spectre. So here you're going to see Mark checking his phone, and I know what happened here. So there were some questions about how Chains of Mephistopheles actually works. So Mark is actually consulting the Oracle text so that everybody's on the same page and understands exactly what's going on, so that there's no confusion here. But in the meantime, he's going to pass the turn back over to Chris, who's going to take copper tablet damage and go to 12, and then he's going to draw for the turn. So after we got clarification, everybody's good to go now. So Chris plays his 4th land of the game, and he lands a Su-Chi and then comes in for 2 with Hypnotic Spectre, which Mark predictably uses his Maze of Ith on. Passing the turn back, Mark is going to go to 16 off of his copper tablet damage and draw his card for the turn. So now Mark is facing down up to 8 damage per turn, but his own strip mine is going to take care of at least 2 of that off of factory activations. But we still got Su-Chi at a 4/4 and Hypnotic Spectre as a flying 2/2 to deal with. Both are scary, scary options. Either giant chunks of life or cards out of hand. I think Chris was having some difficulty finding the 10 on the die here. But eventually we got there, drew our card for the turn. So now we're up to 4 swamps. Chris is going to come in with everybody. So we're going to play a Lightning Bolt and deal 3 damage to Chris. We're going to untap Su-Chi and take 2. Mark goes to 14 and he discards Detonate. So here Chris plays an Underworld Dreams, which is going to deal 1 damage to Mark for every card he draws. So you're going to see Mark take 2 damage here, 1 from the tablet and then 1 for the Underworld Dreams. He's going to land another tablet, and then he's going to pass the turn back over to Chris. So Chris is going to go down to 5 off those copper tablets and take his draw for the turn. Alright, so now we have 5 lands available to us, so Mark is going to untap Su-Chi. He's going to take his 2 off the Hypnotic Spectre because at this point he does not have a hand, so the discard effect on that creature is irrelevant. So Mark gets the turn back from Chris. He takes 2 off the tablets and then 1 off the Underworld Dreams. It goes to 7. And it looks like the door is closing in on Mark. He passes back over to Chris, who goes to 3. Chris now has 6 lands available to him, which is a ton. So we're going to do pretty much the same method of operations as we did last turn. Mark's going to go down to 3, 2. We're going to play our land, and that's pretty much going to do it. He passes the turn back to Mark, or back to Chris rather, who draws for the turn. And that's going to do it, everybody. Chris comes on in. I appreciate you all tuning in. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It helps our metrics and improves our visibility. And we'll see you next time.